I'm Dane Rose, owner and founder of Mystical Landscapes with more than 25 years of experience. And I wanted to introduce the two books that I've written specifically for Marin. And the first thing is to say that these are by no means world-class books. What makes them uniquely valuable and why I wrote them is there's so much nuanced material that is specific to Marin, and no book, whether it's a regional book or a national book, covers that information. And so I wanted to fill in those gaps. The second reason that I wrote the first book, which is all text and has more than 20 chapters, that contains things such as improving your real estate value, managing deer, which is very difficult in Marin, how to amend soil so as to save thousands of dollars and actually benefit your plants more than many standard approaches, how to solve drainage problems in a variety of ways, how to break a project intelligently down into stages and a great design process, and more than 15 other chapters. I wrote this book because my clients who pay me hourly for design ask 70% of the same questions. And so when I do a design, I always give a copy of both my books to clients in advance so that they have the option of reading the information for free and not paying me hourly to consult. Now, the second book is all images for the most part. And I grouped all of the images in a separate book, more than 600 local images, because the cost of printing is 4 times more. So this sells for $45 on Amazon. This sells for $20. And what I wanted to do in images is a couple of things that, again, save my clients money, but may be of interest to you as well. One of the more useful chapters is great Marin plants. Now, if you look at a number of the great books out there, you will find lists of drought-tolerant plants. You will find lists of year-round interest plants. You will have lists of deer-resistant plants. But there is no list that is drought-tolerant, year-round interest, works in Marin soils, available at local nurseries, and low maintenance. This is an incredible list of plants, and so often clients were showing me plants from an East Coast book or another state where that plant may be nice there, but it's not really going to translate over here. And so the real focus of these books is local. Now, the next thing that I thought would be useful is, for example, let's say you're considering putting in a fence. And you're going to look at what your neighbors have done, etc., and you usually make a fairly standard decision. But in the fence chapter, where I drove around Marin and took, hundreds of photos of interesting variants of fences, I wanted to give you a sense of what could be done, and so you could pick and choose 2 or 3 fence designs and maybe get costing on that before making a final decision. Now, I've also gone outside the bounds of traditional landscaping books to, for example, feature a chapter on local landscape materials that I use all the time, and even included rough pricing. Those change over time, but this should give you a ballpark sense of cost. And again, this saves my clients a trip to the material yards to pick out their favorite mulch or boulder type or tile design, things like that. Another big thing that most of my clients are always asking me is, how much does something cost? And so at the end of the book, I've taken 10 of my Marin projects that are all very different. And I've done a profile on each one. what we were trying to accomplish with the client, but also what I charged that client, so that you have a sense, because when I've done competitive bidding in Marin, I've typically been the medium and sometimes the low bidder of the project. And so if this should give you a rough idea of what you might be looking for if you have a similar site and a similar bit, a similar taste. I've also included a couple of good ideas that I've seen done, some of my own and some that I've just seen done by other homeowners and landscapers. And then there's things like this chapter on garage doors. The style of garage doors, how they're painted, etc., has an enormous impact on initial curb appeal. And so it's a useful part to consider when fixing up a property to sell. Mailboxes also have quite an impact and have a wide range of aesthetics, and so I've done a chapter on those, a chapter on different types of pavements that are happening in Marin, different types of steps, something that, the majority of Marin homes have all kinds of terracing and steps that need to be installed, some of the common boulders available, and have also put in different fence concepts. Now, most of this book, in its 600 images, are not my personal work, nor are they my personal recommendation. They're simply a representation of what's out there in Marin. And as a listening style designer, my goal is that you take the time to notice what your favorite fences are, what your favorite arbors are, what your favorite pavement styles are, the plants that you like. And then my goal, when I work with clients as a designer, is to take that information and weave it into a cohesive whole, and then break it down into stages that are comfortable for a client's cash flow. I use both of these books in my handouts when I teach design at the College of Marin. And if you read both of them, I think you have reasonable odds of saving or avoiding 90% of the common mistakes that people make. And, you should easily be able to, if you're doing a noticeable project yourself, save, I would hope that you'd save at least $10,000 as a result of reading the books. And in the design chapters, the real goal is to avoid the biggest bugaboo in landscaping that I see. And that is clients starting somewhat carelessly and spontaneously in bits and pieces that they do over time without a cohesive design, which ultimately ends up as a hodgepodge. Having paid to put all of that in as a hodgepodge, they then call me 5-10 years later, and we demolition a noticeable amount of it and redo it, which means that you pay to put it in, pay to demolition, and then pay to put it in right. And that's the single biggest cost that I see people spending, and wasting all of the time, which these books should be able to help you with. Take care, and if you'd like to work with me personally, just scroll down the page and feel free to send me some information about your project. I'd be glad to come out and meet you and give you a free design estimate.